Alright people, review of the week time. So recording this Monday morning, it's actually St. Patrick's Day now, because I want to do a review. There was a show on UFC Fight Pass last night, which was actually quite interesting. I watched a couple of the fights on it. I'll talk about that in a wee bit, but before we go into the news and reviews of what happened all basically throughout the week of boxing, we'll start with the fights that happened on the weekend. Now, I'll touch very briefly on Edgar Berlanga, because to be honest with you, I know Ammo Williams was one of the undercard, but I didn't see any of the other fights. I did see that Edgar Berlanga missed weight, came in at 169, very unprofessional, I will just say, when it comes to making weight, especially if there is a title on the line, which there was a little NABO or one of those titles that they have in America, which was on the line, wasn't on the line for Berlanga. The guy he was fighting looked, listen, it's normal to see at heavyweight anyway, when you see guys go in there against kind of knockover jobs, that they have a bit of timber around the midriff and stuff like that. It's very seldom you look at guys in respective weight divisions, whether it be middleweight, super middleweight, etc. They're making weight. So normally you expect to see, leanness. So the guy he was fighting had a little bit of timber in there. It was a complete mismatch. Edgar Berlanga, I think that's his first round knockout since he left Top Rank, because obviously he got that record of 16-0 with 16 knockouts all in the first round, and he was fighting absolute cream puffs. Like, he really was. This apparently is his last fight with Matchroom. It's really the way to go out, isn't it? Look, I don't know what he's going to do next. I know with Top Rank, Matchroom got him the Canelo fight at the end of the day, and it seems to, me and Ade spoke about this last week, it seems from the outside looking in, when you fight Canelo, it goes one of two ways. One, you either, I fought Canelo, I didn't win, like Callum Smith, but I believe I can still do something, I'm going to move up in weight, I'm going to look to go down the road of world titles. And Callum Smith's career has carried on very well. Yes, he lost to Artur Beterbiev, but look how good Artur Beterbiev is. He's a tremendous fighter. Only Dmitry Bivol can really hang with him. So there's no shame in that. He beat Joshua Buatsi in a great fight. I wonder, did he have much left in the tank? He proved me wrong. So Callum Smith is one of the examples of a fighter who's fought Canelo, who's tried. They weren't good enough. All right, Canelo's a very, very good fighter. And they've gone on to, still keep their wits about them and have their career and do good things. Bivol obviously beat Canelo. We know what good he's done. So that's one side of it. Then you have the Billy Joe Saunders. Then you have the Charlos of the world, where it's just like, well, where are both of those guys gone? Billy Joe hasn't fought in nearly 4 years. He's never fighting again. I don't care what anyone says. He's never fighting again. And he literally got that Canelo payday, couple of mil, and that was it. That was it. And the really kind of frustrating thing about people like Charlo and Billy Joe, in particular, I think Billy Joe wasn't that old. I think he was only, in his early 30s? So he could have had a couple of years, I think, how old would he have been, 32, 33, something like that? So he could have had a couple more years, same with Charlo. And yeah, you see that with some Canelo fighters. Munguia, I don't really know where he stands, because he left Golden Boy to then, or was he already with, I'm not 100% sure of the ins and outs, but he's gone to Top Rank. He obviously got knocked down in his last fight. So it can go one of two ways. I wonder with Berlanga, is it going the way of the Billy Joe and the Charlo? Although he's staying active, where's the motivation and hunger? Hunger for a lot of things, but boxing maybe not being one of them. In terms of UK, we had Nick Ball versus Dq'D, which I didn't do a review of. I will talk about it here very, very briefly. I did see a bit of Brad Strand versus Eno Balute. Eno Balute, he is a nightmare for up-and-coming, seems to be up-and-coming Frank Warren prospects, unless you're Dennis McCann. But of course, that win, you're going to raise an eyebrow to that win for McCann after what, emerged in the run-up to that fight on the Fury show, which never happened. But Balute has been in there. I think he took Andrew Kainzo, which he did. He drew with Dennis McCann. He lost to Liam Davis. When he fought Mick Conlon all those years ago, that was actually very competitive. It was a majority decision, very competitive fight. David Oliver Joyce, he actually beat Dq'D. It's not a bad resume. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, Balute, and he still has a bit left in the tank. He's one of those guys where if you are not going places, or Dennis McCann's case, God knows, he'll find you out and he'll beat you, more than likely. Or he'll give you a horrendously tough fight. So credit to him. Thank God I didn't see Andrew Kane versus Charlie Edwards. I heard it was horrendous. I heard the styles didn't blend. I just heard it was an absolutely horrific fight. Andrew Kane winning a split decision, And in the main event, TJ Dehenny versus Nick Ball. Nick Ball defending his WBA. I think it is the WBA. Anyway, I'm pretty sure he challenged for the WBC, didn't win it, but he is WBA champion. And of course, BoxRec are still having that beef with WBA, so they don't have it listed as a world title fight. Well done, BoxRec. You really make us all proud there. Yeah, look, a lot of people are going to be asking about the kick in round number 1. Right. Well, Dehenny, I'm not making excuses, had Nick Ball basically in a headlock. Still, the kick, he was lucky. He was lucky because a lot of referees, if you see anyone try and, chuck a kick at someone, I've seen, Jesus, who was it? Oh, it was an obscure little show, and I think it was a former MMA type of guy, and he did throw a kick. I think he missed, but referee was gone. You're out of here. So very, very lucky. Very, very lucky. Maybe because I think with the kick, it might have been more of, with the MMA guy, it might have been more of an aggressive, I'm looking to hurt you, whereas I suppose you could say he was looking to hurt him with that one, but it was more of a, kind of an FU kind of one. He's lucky, Nick Ball. I think the problem is if you disqualified Nick Ball in Liverpool in front of his fans, be a brave referee to do that. Could you imagine disqualifying, like, say, someone like Josh Warrington in a world title fight, if he was defending a world title at Headingley or at Ellen Road? I wouldn't want to be that referee who did that. That would be a very, very scary thought, because you could have some serious problems. So I get that in that sense. He's lucky, Nick Ball. In terms of the performance, yeah, TJ Dehenny, even in there against the Niue, he was never in the fight, but he had moments. You could tell TJ Dehenny at one point in his career, he was a useful enough fighter. And for sure, you could see spots of that with Nick Ball in there. So he had his moments. Nick Ball, ultimately, I wonder if Nick Ball had an injury, because I tell you why, he wore winning gloves in this fight. And Nick Ball always wears Reyes gloves, if you've ever seen him in the past. Now, the reason why I say that's interesting is Reyes gloves are, they're actually quite uncomfortable. I don't particularly like them myself, but they are a noted puncher's glove. They are noted for being a puncher's glove and not really protective of your hands. Whereas winning gloves are on the complete other end of the spectrum. I mean, they are very, very soft to the point where it keeps your hand safe, and it also kind of lessens the blow to the opponent. Now, you only really tend to see fighters wear winning gloves a lot of the time in training as opposed to in fights. A lot of Japanese fighters tend to wear them, but only fighters who have brittle hands would tend to use them in a professional sense. I do wonder, did Nick Ball have a bit of an injury to one of his hands, or maybe even both of them going into this fight? Nevertheless, he wore TJ Dehenny down, stopped him in 10 rounds, had a point deducted for dragging him to the canvas or chucking him to the canvas in round 9. Listen, I love watching Nick Ball. He's one of my favourite fighters to watch. The idea of him against the Niue, listen, Naoya Inoue, Nick Ball is all about offense and all about, getting in early, letting the shots go, hitting you on the inside with loads of uppercuts. I do wonder how hard he actually hits, because we've seen people like, I can't remember his name now, the guy Raymond Ford, wasn't it? Who he couldn't hurt, even though he was outlanding him, he couldn't hurt him with anything, but he could be then hurt. I think Inoue will turn his offense right down, Nick Ball's offense right down, and then turn his lights out. Quite frankly, I don't see him winning that fight. I really don't. I think there's good fights from there at 126 pounds, maybe against the likes of Stephen Fulton or someone like that. But I just can't see how, if they put him in with Inoue, he wins. I truthfully, I just can't see it. In terms of last night, Tom Loeffler so this was on UFC Fight Pass. So I know they've done a show in Ireland before UFC Fight Pass, and it was Callum Walsh who headlined that as well. Now, Callum Walsh headlined and he knocked out, and I mean knocked out. This was a one-punch left hook knockout. Known for the left hook is Callum Walsh. He's knocked out a few guys with that left hook. To Dean Sutherland. I think he's Scottish, Dean Sutherland. Callum Walsh is from Cork. Callum Walsh has been looking very good. He's been looking very good his last couple of fights. I'm really intrigued to see basically what the future has in store for him. He's 13-0 with 11 knockouts, 24 years old, King Callum Walsh. His last fight was actually in Ireland, was in the O2 back in September. Now, forgive me, I'm not even going to try and pronounce this guy's name. He fought Josh Kelly back in the day, and I distinctly remember him going the distance with Josh Kelly, and I think he was actually quite competitive with Josh Kelly. Yeah, he fought him in, well, I say competitive. Josh Kelly pretty much shut him out, but he was game. Callum Walsh took care of this guy in 2 rounds, clean knockout. You see, like his last 3 fights, they're all clean KO, KO, KO. So he is looking good. He's looking good in terms of his punching power. I like what I see with Callum Walsh. You know, there is some good talent coming out of Ireland finally, the likes of Callum Walsh, although I think he is based in the States. Paddy Donovan, although he lost his last fight officially, but like, look, we know he was on the verge of winning. The punch landed after the bell, fair enough, the referee Dq'D him, but he showed the world that, you know, he can hang with the top guys at 147 at world level, and, you know, Lewis Crooker was just leagues below him. You could see that. So we've got some good fighters coming out of Ireland that I think we can hopefully see do good things, Callum Walsh being one of them. I did see Thomas Carty's fight against Dejan Calloway. Very strange injury. I'm not sure how it happened. So Thomas Carty lost that fight via injury. It appears his knee blew out. Well, it definitely blew out because he couldn't stand. So he went down. It was really weird. So like, the guy he was fighting was 409 pounds. He was massive. He was huge in there. And it's weird because they kind of went into like I don't say a clinch, no. But the guy kind of leaned on Carty a bit. Carty went down, and you could tell a punch didn't land, so you knew it wasn't a knockdown as such. So he got back up and you could see, okay, there's an injury. The commentator actually said she thought it was his hand that he hurt, but no, it was his knee. And he tried to carry on, but he was one-legged. Now, I've seen fighters in the past have injuries to their knee. And I remember a very famous example this is how Charles Martin became IBF champion. He fought a Ukrainian fighter, I think it was Vyacheslav Glazov or something his name was. That was actually 9 years ago. Now I forget how old Glazov was. He wasn't that old by heavyweight standards. He wasn't that old. He wasn't a big heavyweight either. He was a kind of, I would say actually a small sized heavyweight. He would have been probably about Alexander Usyk size, nowhere near as talented. And he was fighting Charles Martin for the vacant title because he was mandatory for Tyson Fury after he beat Klitschko. And he was doing all right in that fight. And again, bizarrely, and I think he went to throw a punch and the knee just popped out. He never fought again. So the knee can be problematic. I do wonder, right, because I've seen Carty train before. He's 255 pounds and a lot of road work involved. Listen, mate, I would always, for heavyweights, maybe heavyweights that are maybe 15 stone thereabouts or a little bit heavier, maybe you can do a good bit of road work and impact, but you're coming in at 255 pounds, cycling and swimming. The only road work I do would be brisk walks. I wouldn't do any road work because the impact you're going to put on your knees. That's why I've always looked at Tyson Fury and just been aghast when I see him doing road work and stuff like that. I like running. I like long distance running as well, but I'm not a heavyweight. I'm not 6 foot. How tall is Thomas Carty? 6'4", 6'5", 255 pounds. It's different altogether. So I do wonder, did that play an impact on it? But we'll wait and see what he does next. You know, as I said, the knee injury, that can be a serious injury. It can be a really, really serious injury, and it can affect your mobility moving forward. And he was never the most mobile. When he was younger, as an amateur, he was a lot lighter. So he was a lot more mobile. You see him, he's a lot more static as a pro. So that was the UFC fight card that was on last night. Let's have an old look-see at the news. A lot of stuff on the Ring magazine, and yes, we're going to talk about this. Chris Eubank Jr. being fined 100 grand and then appearing on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Uncensored, eh? Interesting name. Piers Morgan Uncensored. The guy who likes to see people get cancelled. Strange that, but anyway. He went on Piers Morgan, and it was, in my opinion, as one-sided as anything. It was just, you could tell Morgan was very pro-Ben, and it was like he was interrogating Chris Eubank Jr. He was tiptoeing over so many things. You know, Conor Benn never explained why those substances were in his system, the failed PED tests. Piers Morgan just acted like it was a slam dunk. He's cleared. We don't need to ask why he's cleared. Well, cleared to what end? Was he cleared of any wrongdoing by WBC? Well, in as much as they said, well, you're saying it's this, but we're saying it's this. Okay, I'll take it. That doesn't help matters. That's like literally like, well, hang on a minute. Why you're coming to a different fight than he is? But he's what? And then you're trying to get around the British Boxing Board controls due process with jurisdiction, which is another thing Morgan blatantly was untrue about when he was saying he went through due process. No, he absolutely didn't, Morgan. He didn't go through any due process. That's one of the reasons why a lot of people have turned on Conor Benn. So one of the reasons is because he didn't go through due process. If he'd gone through due process and held his hand, like Ryan Garcia is a good example. Ryan Garcia is the opposite end of the spectrum, really, because Ryan Garcia missed weight and failed for performance-enhancing drugs, and Devin Haney is the bad guy. It's really weird. It's really weird. But Ryan Garcia basically took it on the chin. He got a year ban, which is, I think, up next month. So by the time he fights in May, he'll be all good. And Devin Haney hasn't even fought since their fight anyway. So it's, some ban. You really want to turn these fighters off, taking PEDs, don't you, with something like that. The guy lost the fight and he's out just as long. It's mental. But it was not compelling viewing, to say the least. It felt more of an interrogation to Chris Eubank Jr. And as I said, Piers Morgan just completely ignoring what's happened in the past with Conor Benn, acting like, Conor Benn, it's all cleared, he's all good. When it came to Chris Eubank Sr., well, we haven't spoken in a while. Well, tell me, you have to give me a name, It's like, what the hell? This guy is like proper interrogating Chris. Chris Eubank Jr. played a blinder, I thought, because he was able to rough Morgan's feathers, which is not exactly a hard thing to do. But in terms of Chris Eubank Jr. on Conor Benn, I've said it before about Conor Benn, he's a very emotional character. Now, in boxing is, you can't really put a number on the mental aspect of boxing, but a lot of it is mental. And a lot of times, if you are essentially an emotional character like Nigel was, like Conor is, that can have some not good effects on you in the ring, because you can burn up a lot of energy, you can fight very recklessly when you really should be calm. Keeping calm in the ring is something that's very important, especially say if you're hurt. Like a good example, look at Floyd Mayweather when he got hurt against Shane Mosley. Look how calm he was when he knew exactly what to do against Mosley. Remember Conor Benn when he got dropped by Cedric Payne, how reckless he got, and I remember it very well. He was so, that was a much younger Conor Benn, but he's still very that type of character inclined. And Chris Eubank Jr. was just winding him up and winding him up and winding him up. And for me, I was like, yeah, this is, if he goes into the ring with that same kind of aggression, he's in for a rude awakening. He's going to have some trouble in there. He really will. The rehydration clause, it is a factor going into this fight, but I don't know. I think the closer we get to it, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting. As we look, a lot of the stuff that we're seeing on the Ring magazine, it is primarily the fallout from Piers Morgan and Conor Benn. I know obviously Eubank Jr. was fined that 100 grand for egging Conor Benn, which he says that was money well spent. Whether he pays the full fine or not, whether that's just for show and they'll actually, just say, actually no, it's 100 grand for show, but only pay us 10 grand, remains to be seen. But that's that. Derek Chisora wants Alexander Usyk for his 50th fight. He says, I want my last fight to be with Alexander Usyk. I'd prefer your last fight to be with Dillian Whyte, to be honest with you. I think that fight makes the most sense for both you guys. You against Dillian Whyte, run it back one last time. At this stage now, I'd make Chisora a firm favourite to beat Dillian Whyte. In terms of Dillian Whyte, what's he going to do? I mean, there's literally nothing for him at heavyweight. At the end of the day, he was going to fight Joe Joyce on April the 5th. I was picking Joe Joyce to win that fight. And I think Joe Joyce has seen much better days. He's even older than Dillian Whyte, and I think he's seen much better days. I would have had him winning that fight. Instead, Joe Joyce now faces Filip Hrgovic, which is an interesting fight in of itself. I think it's a much better fight. I believe much more intriguing fight. Joyce, I don't know how much he has left in the tank. I really don't. Hrgovic, he's younger than Joyce. He is more preserved, you would think, anyway. But he's been a bit all over the place lately in fights. He's looked lethargic. He's looked disinterested, lackluster. Coming in off the back of the loss, the Daniel Dubois, where he literally went off the radar. How is he going to be? Has that loss motivated him? Has it inspired him? And then seeing what Dubois has gone on to do, it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to inspire him or it's going to wreck him. So I like this fight. I think it's going to be really, really good. I think it's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I also seen Keith Thurman, obviously, I meant to do a quick review on his fight. He fought during the week against Brock Javez. To touch on it very briefly, I already did a post-fight review on it. One time looked terrible the first 2 rounds. He looked old. The punching power was still there, but I wasn't aware. Brock Javez started his career at like 122. And when he fought Liam Parrow, that was at 140. I mean, like, you're talking about what a chinny, blown up super bantamweight fighting a 150 pound Thurman who always had power. Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster right there. So Keith Thurman, yeah, look, I don't see much of this comeback. I think Thurman wasted his prime years due to inactivity. He was never like, you know, the way the PBC, some of those guys, they behave very much diva-ish. Thurman never behaved like that, but he just didn't take his career serious. After he became unified welterweight champion, it just seemed he checked out mentally at that point. Frank Warren has revealed to the Ring magazine Hamzah Sheeraz is set to compete at super middleweight moving forward. I don't know how he did the weight. He's just getting bigger and bigger. I don't know how he made the weight either. I mean, Hamzah Sheeraz is huge. He was at 154 at one stage. God only knows how he ever did that. Some of these weights these guys get down to, it's insane. It really is insane. So Hamzah Sheeraz now up at 168 pounds. I think that's going to be a good move for him. 168, you know, once Canelo does kind of sail off into the sunset, which may very well be a year away, and Hamzah Sheeraz, there is talk he could actually end up facing Canelo Alvarez. I'd still pick Canelo over Sheeraz, to be honest with you. But Hamzah Sheeraz should be able to pick up a version of a title. But are we looking at Hamzah Sheeraz and saying, you're not as good as we think you are, or Carlos Adames is just better than we think you are? Maybe that's why he's moving up to 150 or 168. If he ran it back with Adames. And I want to just interject. Hamzah Sheeraz has been getting a lot of something chucked at him over the fact that there's over the decision won, and that there's a perceived bias towards him. It's not his fault. It always amazes me when a fighter gets a decision, and obviously Hamzah Sheeraz didn't get the decision, it was a draw, but it's going to feel like a loss for Carlos Adames because he keeps his title, but he doesn't get the W, he doesn't get the glory of that. Again, none of that is Hamzah Sheeraz's fault. You know, if a fighter loses or a fighter wins and he should have lost and he gets the decision, I give no blame to the fighter. It's not his fault. He didn't tell the judges to score the fight for him. So I don't like that when fighters do that. When they, you know, a fighter, obviously a decision we don't agree with, give the fighter, you know what, it's not his fault. Hamzah Sheeraz, he did nothing. He did nothing wrong. Do I think he won the fight? No, of course not. Do I think it was a draw? No, certainly not. But again, that's on the judges. You blame anyone, blame the judges. The three wise men, they're meant to be wise. Not so wise after all. The WBO have officially ordered heavyweight champion Alexander Usyk to defend his title against interim champion Joseph Parker. Parties have 30 days to agree a deal before it goes to purse bids. So we'll finish with this and Okolie react pour. Let's start with Usyk versus Parker. So there was a lot of talk from Alex Krasuk that Usyk will be fighting Daniel Dubois in the summer. And then the WBO announced that they will be mandating him to fight Joseph Parker. Now, for me personally, either fight I'd be happy to see. I wouldn't mind seeing the Dubois rematch. I think it's closer and it's competitive this time. I would love to see Parker, for a variety of reasons, get his crack. One, of course, is that I think he's long overdue a shot. He should have got a shot at Daniel Dubois. Didn't happen. He deserves a world title shot. He's now mandatory. And I think they should do it. I think Joseph Parker, both guys are deserving. Parker hasn't had a crack. Daniel Dubois has challenged for a world title in the last couple of years. He's won a world title as well. He's defended it. Parker hasn't had a world title shot. Well, the only world title shot he ever got, he won. Then he was champion. And since he lost that title 7 years ago, he's not had a world title shot. He's long overdue one. Long overdue one, in my opinion. Let Joseph Parker have that shot. I'd prefer that fight over Dubois, personally, because I haven't seen Joseph Parker versus Usyk yet. I don't know what might happen. As good as I think Dubois will do against Usyk this time, I still think Usyk's going to win, probably stop him again. So let's see Parker. Let's see something different. As I said in the previous video, he's now also he's in Team Fury. So Tyson Fury's been in there with 24 rounds with Alexander Usyk. That knowledge is invaluable. In terms of Lawrence Okolie, Fight Richard Riakporhe is now off. I did see someone shared an image. Lawrence Okolie, man, this guy's got banter. Where was this is so frustrating when you see fighters like this, when I don't know, is it the fact that he was on Sky and they were telling him to be a bit more mellow or something like that? Because I seen him share a pic of Richard Riakporhe with Madonna's Like a Prayer as the song playing. And yeah, Riakporhe looked a little bit, I think he was modelling, and yeah, interesting modelling to say the least. Very interesting, not in a good way. And that's just banter Okolie has, it really is good. Why didn't we get this Okolie years prior? I think he's always had that bit of, you know, cheeky chappy in him, and I like it. I'm enjoying seeing it. Him a heavyweight. You know, he stunk the place out in a couple of fights at cruiserweight, yeah, and I think it left a bad taste in people's mouths. He's fixing that now. The fight is off though, however. I wonder what Okolie will do next. I wonder if that coincides with him being #1 ranked by the WBC, and, you know, people wondering who is Adja Kabayel going to face next. Him against Okolie would be very interesting. I'd be I'd be intrigued to see that. I really would. I think it'd be a really good fight. If Okolie, I thought Okolie would struggle at heavyweight. And look, he's only had one fight. But, there's intrigue now. There's intrigue now with Okolie. So let's wait and see. Let's watch the space. In terms of everything else, I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. We're getting closer. We're only about 220 subs off 23k, so let's see if we can do that in the next week or so. I hope you have a great day. St. Patrick's Day today, so it's a bank holiday for myself. I'm going to head out into the city and just go for a meal or something. Go to the gym first, then head into the city, go for a meal or something. So it's an easy day for me. I had a good weekend. I was up in Milton Keynes with my family yesterday as well, so it's been a nice weekend. We've had a good weekend. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already, and I will chat to you later. Peace.